Again, I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to be here. I guess, what did you think when I called and asked you to do this?
I thought this is good.
I was happy, yeah.
I was happy
I'm
about
looking
it.
for opportunities.
Absolutely. Great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Why is that, Laura?
You know, I want to help another family not go through what, we're going through. I have to do something.
Yeah.
A lot of these deaths are preventable and senseless. So many of them. So it's trying to get that messaging out. There's so many people that are falling into this abyss between lack of knowledge and then straight to harm reduction. Our government seems to be moving straight into harm reduction as a preventative measure without the educational and awareness piece. So I think that's a big piece that's missing, and why we've got so many senseless and preventable deaths.
Let's start there then. Let's talk about what's missing through all of this. 2 deaths a day, still today, and it's getting worse. You're all nodding your head. It seems like you're familiar with this.
It's awareness. People do not know. I didn't know what it was when my son died. They said, we suspect it's fentanyl. And I was like, what is that? I didn't know. So knowledge is power. I think that people need to know what they're getting into. It's not just like back in the day when we'd, use recreational drugs or whatever and try things. Now it's Russian roulette. Mm-hmm. And kids need to know that. Parents need to know that.
Yeah. Jalen died how many years ago?
It'll be 3 years this summer.
And has it improved at all, this education piece that you're talking about?
No. No. It's slow going, but
I think it's getting better. At least I see more, more on the news about it, more drug busts. I think it's finally getting some sort of attention. I don't like that it's considered it is considered, at least the laws seem to think it's a recreational drug, and it's not. It's poison. The laws need to change, and fentanyl needs to be in a class by itself, not the same thing as other drugs.
As we were talking, I feel like calling it a poisoning is almost a much more descriptive term. It's more appropriate. It's a mass poisoning, right? As we were talking about.
It is. I mean, I made comments at that summit, that very thing, because an overdose, seems to indicate that, someone made a mistake, they took too much, and that couldn't be further from the truth with this. Right. All it takes is, a couple of grains, and you can die.
My son died from half of the pill, only half.
My daughter too.
So there is no too much, and the other half went to his friends that he shared with, and
And they were fine.
And so if he gave him different pills, then basically he would murder his friend. But there is no such a thing as too much.
No. Well, it can be concentrated in just one part of the pill because there's no quality assurance.
Yeah.
There's no control over who's mixing the drugs, so a few grains of sand will kill a large man. So
In
very
moments.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot take chances. It's pretty much you cannot take chances. You could be dead. So
6 out of 10 chance.
I've heard kids say that they can tell the difference between a fake pill and a real pill, and they absolutely cannot.
No.
I try and tell them that because, they use the same pill presses and the same dye. It looks the exact same, you can't tell.
it's identical.
Really?
And kids have that, I can tell the difference, but there's no way.
They're fooling themselves.
right, and plus it's highly addictive. So
Exactly.
you can get addicted right away.
Deceived into addiction. You can easily get deceived into addiction.
Right.
There was a young man, he's 14, in braces, Amy Neville's son. She is one of the founders, a founder or a board member of Void, Victims of Illicit Drugs. Her son thought he was getting one prescription pill through Snapchat, and I don't remember exactly what it was, if it was a Percocet or a Xanax. But he was deceived into what he was getting, and then he, within days, got addicted and started something's wrong, and he went and told his parents. I bought these pills online, and I don't know what's going on, and I can't shake it. And so they were looking to get him into treatment, but right before they could, he got another pill that killed him.
And that's what's terrifying. That's how my son got the pill. He got on Snapchat, ordered a Percocet. They brought it to his house, gave it to him, and he died that night because it was straight fentanyl. That was the only thing in his system. And it was like a quarter of the pill that killed him. And he was 6'2", 285 pounds, so he was a big boy.
Yeah, same for my daughter. When they did the toxicology, there was so much in there that the prosecutors thought it was an error. There was enough to kill, I think, 36 people or more, but it wasn't an error.
But I don't get the sense that any of your children had a drug problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
My daughter did have
sorry.
some issues.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak
Well,
for
she
you.
did. I think she was a victim of the world, mean girl bullying, and just a series of things, getting involved with the wrong boyfriend, and but she had kicked it. We had actually sent her to treatment 9 months before, and she was doing great. She was starting her dream job at a makeup store the next day. She was doing great, and this was just a moment, an opportunity moment she had, and
Which goes back to what we were saying earlier. The term drug epidemic doesn't seem to be the right term. It seems like a mass poisoning.
It is.
Because
the
our
way I
kids
see
wouldn't be dead if my daughter Sophia had received a Percocet, she'd still be alive.
Yeah,
It
that's
wasn't
what they think they're
Percocet.
getting.
This isn't a fight against drugs. It's a fight to stay alive. I mean, that's what it is, because kids are dying.
Yeah,
That's my mission. I'm the drug part.
yeah.
How many of you pay attention to the King County dashboard from the
I
health
don't.
department?
I just watch King County News. So I'm not sure about the dashboard. What-
Yeah.
Olga, why do you
Public
continue
health,
to
yeah,
why do you
definitely.
continue to check these numbers?
Well, I post some findings on the website. I share it on Facebook, and it's just incredible how fentanyl spiked against all other drugs. I mean, it just totally took over meth. I mean, like 2 years ago, meth was still number one, and it was synthetic, so it made two of them. But now meth is not even there; it's just all fentanyl. And
heroin either.
and then I mean, first of all, it's not too much data that you can find in other places, and I mean, I'm grateful that at least we have that, and they update it pretty much daily, so you could see what's going on. I mean, I wish there was more information, for example, on more breakdown on ages, because I think we're all very alarmed that it's young children who gets murdered.
I read it's the number one killer of
Yeah.
18 to 45.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that just because they are so young, educate them is extremely difficult, right? Because their brain is not developed. So it's not only we need to educate them, but we also need to protect them and guide them and basically watch them, because it's just they're just kids.
They think kids think they're invincible.
Right. So their brain just cannot comprehend. So what if he died? I mean, he played on video games 10 times that he died. No, they're just not afraid because they're too young.
It's painful to see the numbers when you look at these dashboards. I'm wondering, what do you make of the spike that we're seeing right now?
Well, it's in everything. Everything they buy off the street, it's in everything.
Yes.
You can't get anything on the street now, besides weed and alcohol, that does not have fentanyl in it.
Yeah.
All of it has fentanyl in it. Some of them, they say, oh, it was a overdose of meth. But guess what? Fentanyl was in there too.
there too.
But they went and got meth. And that was their primary drug, but there was fentanyl in it. It's in
Cocaine
everything.
too, I've heard.
cocaine.
Yeah. Cocaine, ecstasy, all the pills that they're doing, it's in everything.
How many of your children were connected with fentanyl through social media? Fran, can you tell me
Yes.
about that?
Yeah, my daughter bought what she thought was a Percocet through Snapchat, and it was fentanyl. Yeah. And to our knowledge, it was the only place she had bought it online. So
It seems too easy.
very
Snapchat.
easy. It's like like Amazon.
Yeah, they deliver. They'll
They
just
just
deliver it right to
it
you.
to
It's
your door.
a few clicks on your phone, and they
Yeah.
deliver it or meet you somewhere.
I've seen the postings where they have menus and they
Yeah.
say what
Yes.
what areas they're going to be in, what city
Yes.
they're going to be in each day. They're mobile.
Yeah, they'll
Really?
connect you by your phone's location to tell you what dealers are in your area, and so it's quick, very fast to get.
Did you know this before?
No.
No,
Well,
no idea. I didn't know
No.
what fentanyl was, and I work in healthcare.
Yeah.
And
I
no
thought
idea.
Snapchat was pictures, like
Yeah.
kids exchanging pictures. I had no idea
Yeah.
they were getting drugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
what do you want to see more of? What are you hoping someone will do or say to make things better? What can be done in terms of
Awareness.
saving?
Awareness is the key. People have to know, and parents are think, oh, it won't happen to me. Well, guess what? It can. And I could have, I never said that, but I could have said that because I didn't know what fentanyl was. I didn't get a chance to warn my son about fentanyl because I hadn't heard of it yet.
Yeah.
Now, there's no excuse. We know it's killing people. We have to tell our kids, just like you talk to them about, growing up and whatever, like puberty and stuff like that. You need to tell them, hey, if you take a pill at a party that someone gives you, you don't know where it came from, you can die.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a possibility. Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Yes. I think education needs to start even as young as middle school.
Middle school, yeah.
And start telling the kids about it right away. So far, it seems most of the schools in my area have been a little bit resistant to getting in there and educating. But it would be helpful if the schools would come alongside us or send out even a simple email to the Parent-Teacher Association, if they still have those. Tell the parents, this is a risk out there. This is what it is. This is what fentanyl is. But when I asked one of my friends that works at a middle school, she sent me a poster that was on the wall, and it's more about being safe when you do drugs. Have some Narcan. Take turns doing drugs. And to me, that sends the wrong message.
Well, Narcan is very important because it is saving lives. So I do think we also need to be on board with getting that. Like in Tacoma, they have vending machines where you can get it for free. You can also, it's over the counter, I think. I know we have a standing prescription in Washington State to get it, but it's expensive. So, I
But
mean,
they're putting that trank in fentanyl, and that Narcan is not effective.
Oh, yeah.
Against
Yeah.
it.
That's true.
the new drug.
Narcan and fentanyl test strips are Band-Aids on a gaping wound, but they're better than nothing. And I think it can save some lives, but it's not the answer to this problem. There needs to be more done.
There's not just one answer.
Yeah, it needs
right.
to come from all directions. And I think
Yes.
I'd personally like to see a statewide mandated awareness campaign because people in corporations should be getting emails from their employers warning them and saying, you should know about this, you protect your families. I spoke to somebody in the healthcare authority when I was doing my research on the 2016 Governor Inslee's 2016
Declaration, executive order.
executive order about the opioid crisis. And so I was doing some research on that, and I found out who wrote it, and it was the healthcare authority. And I contacted the people in the healthcare authority, and I was telling them why I was, inquiring about this, and I wanted to learn how this information is trickling into the communities, because that's supposed to be what you're doing. And one of the guys I spoke with, he's a supervisor, and he oversees the health of, from birth to age 25, and family awareness and healthy families, right? That's his mission, and he was not aware of any of it. This was in 2022. This was like a year ago. And so I explained to him about the fake pills and all the different fake pills that were out there, about the Snapchat drug dealers, and he wasn't aware of that. And he's like, how do I not know this? I work in healthcare. And he said, I'm really glad that I had this conversation with you today, because I have 2 teenage daughters at home, and I'm going to be going home and talking with them tonight about this. So he was really thankful for it. But if you've got people working at the healthcare authority that is part of this whole opioid piece that Inslee is trying to work on, it's not happening the way it should, I don't think. I tried to get a meeting with him, but I was told he was too busy.
Why don't you think more is being done? Why is that? What's your sense?
It's because it's work. It's more work, and it's just going to be another thing. Like coming out of COVID, I think a lot of people are just like, not another thing that we're required to do, and that's, you know. And I think it's also a way to pretend it's not happening in their communities, you know. I think there's some hesitation to put that out there because I don't think a lot of people want other people to think, oh, Skagit County is full of drugs, you know. Well, it is. We just had a major drug bust there last year, like 300,000 pills. It was huge. So, and there's been plenty more. So, and the other thing that's scary about this whole, all these seizures that we're seeing, these massive amounts of seizures, is often comes with weapons. I'm seeing a lot more guns showing when they're showing all the drugs that they found. And the scary thing for people to need to know about is that if your child's buying drugs from a Snapchat drug dealer, it's often right after that first transaction that they threaten their life and their families if they tell. So, and I worked with another young man. We did a presentation at a high school in Skagit County, and he got addicted to fentanyl during COVID. He was 24. His through Snapchat, and he was self-medicating for depression. And his dealer drove from Tacoma, actually all the way up to Skagit County, and told him he had clients all over Skagit and in Whatcom County. And then after they made their first transaction, he said, if you snitch, I'll kill you.
Yeah, I think Washington does so many things right progressively, but I feel like they're missing the mark on fentanyl. I look at legislation in other states. Interestingly enough, they're all backed by Republicans. Virginia just passed a law that selling fentanyl, the penalty can be up to 40 years. It's not just one thing. Education certainly is another thing, but penalties. My daughter, in my daughter's case, they knew who gave her the pills, and they were going to charge him with homicide, but then backed from that and weren't going to do anything. And I had to work almost 2 years. I worked really hard and finally got them to charge him with 2 charges. And just this past, on the 14th, the judge gave him the maximum sentence for those charges. It was just 20 months. But, he killed my daughter. But that's all, that's successful. I got the maximum, I wrote to several of our state, legislators and our senators, and I didn't get anything back from one. And the other one sent me a canned response that had nothing to do with the issue that I was talking about, my daughter and fentanyl. I think the laws just need to be stiffer. Fentanyl is not a recreational drug. It's not. We should penalize people differently than if they're walking around with some ecstasy or a minor with weed or something, because it's a poison. It is a poison.
It's highly lethal.
And the other thing I think is that we need to look at mental health resources. I know with my own daughter who was going through depression, it's nearly impossible to find psychologists, counselors that deal with adolescents. I put her on a waiting list at Children's Hospital with a psychiatrist, and literally her name may still be on that list. It's just, there's a lot of different things, and I know people will say that stiffer penalties don't deter crime, but you know what, it deters some people, and every person that they lock up is countless lives that will be kept. And a lot of these sales that our kids, these are just kids selling them, kids selling to kids, and if the penalties are a lot stiffer, some of them, but we need to reduce the demand. If the demand wasn't there, then these cartels would move on to something else.
What was it like to be in that courtroom? To look at the man who gave your daughter this drug?
Yeah, I had seen him once before at a sort of the government, moves very slowly, and there was one opportunity before that I saw him just on a TV monitor, and I had no idea. I just had this visceral reaction, and I was just shaking. But somewhere along the line, I just decided I wasn't going to let him take my power. And we had nearly 70 letters from Brillian's family and friends that the judge read. I sent the judge an 11-page document about Brillian, and then a lot of evidence about this individual and how he was selling even after he knew my daughter. Even after he knew she died, he was continuing to sell. And there was an interaction several months later with my son, who, this kid, befriended him on Instagram or something. I had kept it from my son. I didn't tell him who it was. I thought I wanted to wait till he had to know, because he was very angry. And there was an exchange where this kid, he thought it was funny. He thought it was funny. And the judge was wonderful, much different than other judges I had encountered, in this case. He was what a judge should be. He was thoughtful. He listened to us. I stood up and talked, proudly represented my daughter. We had pictures up. He said that in his 7 years as a judge, he only one time had sentenced someone to jail time for these offenses. This was the second time, 20 months. He did the maximum. He should have been charged with homicide.
The other 4 of you haven't had that chance, right?
No.
Not yet.
They didn't do an investigation at all. Jalen's friends did an investigation. They found everything out. That's how I know what happened. And then Jennifer closed the case within 2 months. So I went to her supervisor. He opened the case up. He closed it within 2 months. And then the drug dealer actually died. So he died of an overdose himself. So my case is kind of.
You have to work hard.
Yeah.
As a mom, this is what I think helped me through my grieving, is I had a purpose. And I did a lot of investigating too and I was lucky once again with an amazing detective in Bellevue who really cares. And he worked tirelessly, and that was another reason why I did even go to court, because his report was so thorough. But it shouldn't be. We shouldn't have to fight this hard. I don't know why we do.
I knew who sold Lucas pill, and police got the phone from this guy, and they couldn't even open the phone because they were so tied up on what they can do or what they cannot do. So, and then again, we were faced with the things that, how you can prove without a doubt that that was a pill that killed my son. Pill does not exist. So, of course, we cannot say without a doubt. We know that my Lucas, saw this guy at 8 p.m. And then on the phone, we see that he went home. And we know that he stopped by his friend to give him half pill. And then we know that he died at 12. So he did not see anyone. Of course, potentially he could buy pill from someone else, maybe even a month ago. We cannot eliminate that.
I had a car tracker, and I could see where she went, and it still didn't help.
Yeah, so that's very hard. I don't think it's even possible to say without a doubt that pill killed that person, and that makes it very hard.
Difficult to investigate.
The prosecutors don't, they want to win cases.
I think
I felt like, I made a plea. I talked to Dan Satterberg. I had I guess, I play the grieving mother card, but I got a nice audience, and I, had a lot of my own evidence, and, they just didn't want to take it, even though I think, I had said to them 95% of the cases get pled out. And after the sentencing, I said to the prosecutor, it went so well that, I think
You could have got homicide.
they should have done it. They would have done it. Yep.
Well, it's a loophole. In the system we have loopholes, and then people die. A lot of people die until they fix it.
Well, you literally, according to them, it would be like the person sells the pill, and then an hour later they die, right where they bought the pill at. I mean, it has to be that clean.
Right,
Well,
once they
with
got
Jalen, they actually found the baggie underneath his body, and it was the signature baggie that this particular dealer used, so that's how they knew who it was. So, I mean, they had all the evidence. They just said, there's nothing we can do. The laws, you know, there's nothing we can do. And also his friend was there, and they have the Good Samaritan law, which I think is great, but you know, it didn't help my son. I don't know what happened with him, like if he was scared to call. His friend was there the entire time. I still don't know how Jalen's dead. It's like, you know.
We did get an arrest in our son's death, a controlled substance homicide arrest, and he pleaded. They did a plea deal, so we didn't have to go to trial, which I was so thankful for. And he got the lighter end. I think the max is only 68 months or something like that, and he got 48 or something for a little over 4 years. But my son's case was different because he purchased it from an acquaintance. Of course, we didn't know anything about this until the arrest was made. But the police took his phone. He has got an Apple phone, and they had said that they just bought a machine, the state of Washington's first machine that can break into Apple phones. It was someplace in Eastern Washington. So they drove his phone to Eastern Washington, put it on this machine for 5 months, and that's how long it took to get a result. And there was the evidence on the phone about the text conversation and where he picked it up, and where he picked it up was somebody that he knew worked behind a convenience store down the street from our house. And so there's camera for that, and then there's camera for when he left our house, and he was gone 9 minutes.
So you're doing your own investigating.
It was, yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
We talked about the "this isn't happening in my town" stigma. I've heard that from a lot of different parents about concern from police maybe in certain cities that this isn't happening here. We don't want to be known as the city that has this happening. With that in mind, I'm wondering how the 5 of you have been received by other parents.
People hear overdose and they picture someone in a back alley with a needle hanging out of their arm, you know, dying because they took too much drugs. And this is a poisoning, so it needs to be called what it is. And I think that, I mean, that'll be more effective because it is poisoning. This is not an overdose situation with our kids.
It's an
Any of these
insult
kids.
to say it is.
It is, it's, yeah.
But does it feel at all to you like, I guess, have other family or friends in your friend circle thought of you differently because this has happened to you?
I think so. It's very, I shouldn't say it's common. It's definitely not uncommon when families experience a tragedy that there's a whole shift in your relationships with the living people in your life. So your friend groups change, you've got family members that you might no longer spend time with. It's like a thing. When I started reading these grief books, I found out that that's common. You know, it's just weird, and I never knew that. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely been my case.
I mean, people are supportive in the beginning, but then who wants to, I mean, I've lost people, like who wants to hang out with me when I cry. I've not cried. I mean, I cry every day, at least once. And I'm not any fun to be around most of the time. So who wants to be around that?
Yeah, I think I've withdrawn myself big time in my life.
How does it feel to be around other moms like this? How does it feel to be around each other? Does that help?
Yes,
It does.
it's like
They're the only ones that know how we feel.
It's like you're in this new club now that you never wanted to be in.
Yeah.
It's a horrible club, but you find bonding in there. It's just it's strange.
We all have similar stories.
So thankful
Yeah.
for it though.
You know, as a parent, I used to think like, just imagine what if I lost one of my children and how horrible it would be, but it's nothing like what you think it is. It's nothing at all like that. It's like a zillion times worse in every way.
I think the other moms are better than therapy. It's the best therapy to be together.
It is good therapy.
And they lift me up. And
'Cause no one else can understand.
I wouldn't be feeling as well as I do today if it wasn't without all these other moms.
It's unnatural to lose a child. Totally unnatural. I never thought, I never dreamed, I never imagined I would lose a child. Now my fear is losing another child because I know that pain and
Yeah.
it's the worst.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I changed on a molecular level. Like the pain was so intense. It's like it hits every cell of your body, and it lasts for a long time. I think after the first 2 years, I was like, I think I'm finally done cracking into a million pieces, and now I'm just a pile of rubble on the floor, and I got to put myself back together. But I'm like a Picasso version of who I used to be. You know, it's like things don't fit right, don't feel right. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the same person. I mean, I've always just been sort of a naturally happy,
Yeah,
same. Person, and even a few times where I might feel happy, I instantly feel guilty. Because how could I feel happy about anything when I lost my daughter?
it's a survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
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 Why guilty?
Joy's kind of out of the question these days.
No, there's no joy.
So,
You know, I try to be upbeat for my son, who's, dealing with his own, demons, over this. Was his little sister. He felt like he should have been protecting her, and he didn't.
It gives you a new empathy for others, no matter
Oh,
what
yeah.
grief they're going through, because we've suffered with, I think, the worst kind of grief possible. So you immediately connect
Yeah.
with
Anything on
others
TV,
that are going through.
any children that die, I just lose
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just all, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like every day you hear about these mass shootings, and it's because we know what those parents are going
Yeah.
through. It's just indescribable.
I think that's something the public doesn't realize when they hear these big numbers of all these people that have died. First of all, I think the numbers are underrepresented because even the CDC has said that, because a lot of the hospitals aren't even testing for fentanyl in their toxicology reports when people die of drug overdoses. So, when I think of that and how many people have died, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, I
Can
think
you
you made
edit
it.
that out?
Thanks, Robin. I think you made an important point just saying that. It's interesting because the numbers could be a lot higher than we think.
Yes, just keep them here.
Olga, go ahead.
I wish we talk about fentanyl kind of on a more regular basis, not when somebody dies and all of a sudden on TV, oh, and like teenager died or somebody else died, but talk regularly. Like we talked about COVID. Like I think the same amount of effort and money should be invested in fentanyl as we invested in COVID. Everyone knew about COVID, about dangers, regardless if you are on Facebook or not on Facebook, on social. Somehow the message was very clear. It was very there. But I feel like with fentanyl, like when you called and you said that you want to do the program, and I thought it's great that we're doing program not when somebody died, but when nobody
I
died.
see what you mean, yeah.
We just talk about it because we know that people are dying. It just, it's just not something extraordinary like, 14-year-old died, or 12-year-old died, or 16-year-old died.
I remember what I was going to refer to is that people don't understand that with this mass amount of deaths that are happening, the trauma left behind for the families. Like the best friends are suffering, the families are suffering. There's so many, the wake of devastation for these senseless, preventable deaths is going to be a more burden on our country if we don't stop this, because we're all left, needing counseling, or we have PTSD.
Yeah.
There's all sorts. We've been traumatized. So now we're stuck here in this life, broken.
In the worst way.
In
I
the
found
worst
my
way.
daughter. I'll never forget
found
every
my son.
moment that
Same.
happened.
It's
It's
horrific. It's.
it never leaves you. It's always somewhere right beneath the surface.
I was so traumatized by losing our son that when we did the sentencing hearing, which wasn't for a year and a half later, I sat in the prosecuting attorney's office. I was too traumatized to face a courtroom experience because I knew that would just add to my trauma, because then you get the visual and the whole, the whole thing, and it's too much. It's too much. I couldn't do it. So I had my friends go, and they held pictures of Trey and all that, and yeah, that was really hard.
Before we lose our time together, I really want to ask about solutions and what other parents can take away from this. Anyone can answer this. I'm curious. What should parents be looking for as they watch this, as they hear you? What should they be watching for?
Well, my son was injured when he took a fake Percocet. So I knew nothing about fake pills or nothing about the opioid crisis was not on our radar at all. I knew nothing about fentanyl. So now that I'm aware of what it was, I could have been paying more attention to his physical abilities, because he was really struggling. He kind of had a setback. He was like 8 months after his surgery, but was trying to get active again and trying to play basketball, and he re-injured his leg, and he had a plate and screws and something called a tightrope around his ankle, and he was really suffering. It went back to constant icing, constant elevation, Epsom salt soaks. He went to his doctors. He was under the care of 2 doctors at the time of his death for 2 separate injuries, neither of them who prescribed him pain medication. For that, of course, when he first had a surgery, he got some, but afterwards, he didn't. So I would be watching. There was one time I came home right before he passed, and he was like taking a nap on the couch, which really shocked me because he's very active, but he does get up early in the morning and stuff. But I was really surprised, and I would have thought, that's not right. It's a really nice day outside, and Trey's here sleeping hard, and he's usually outside, being active and doing something. So I think about that. That really...
That's important.
To go back further, if I had it to do over again, no phones. Way later, and monitor, and not, I was trying to be sensitive to her privacy. The same thing with my son. But if I had it to do over again, they wouldn't get smartphones. They could get phones because obviously there's a use for that. But I feel like social media and the internet is what really caused my daughter's death. Girls are held to these standards of beauty that they're not even real. And girls can be so mean, to each other. They're just getting different messages all the time that they're just not enough.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And parents need to know that it can happen to them. Even if you're a helicopter mom, your kid will still go and experiment with drugs. And some of these kids are dying just from experimenting one time, taking one pill at a party.
I find that so hard as a parent myself to think, if I'm watching them like a helicopter parent, that this could happen.
Matter. Yeah, they're going to experiment. I mean, that's just facts.
It's happening at slumber parties or at prom night or a party. You don't know.
Yeah.
And if they get it from a trusted source,
and they're not going to
try
tell
it.
you. They're not going to tell their parent because they want to do it.
Yeah.
I
So
think educate our children and us ourselves on what drugs are, what alcohol is, how addiction works, how we're all sensitive to that, and clearly understand that it can impact you more than someone else. And what's happening is that you're basically losing control over yourself. So yeah, I mean, education and then keep watching, and especially boys pretty much until 25, their brain is not developed. They're
The
still
kids
children.
think they know everything.
And I think the conversations need to come frequently, not just a one-time sit down and talk. I think you should be talking about that with your children, like, hey, what's going on at school? Do you know, are there drug dealers in your school? Do you know about that? And tell me, start those conversations, because there are drug dealers
at
in
a young
schools.
age.
Yeah, I think we're so much afraid to talk about it. We're not trained to talk about it.
Right.
And that's why it is very uncomfortable. And we think that, well, if we talk about it, potentially we assuming that it can happen, and only thinking about it, you start being shaking and sweating, and because you don't know how to handle it. So because we're not trained, we don't know how to deliver that message.
There's a good website, songforcharlie.org, and they talk about, in that website, they talk about how to talk to your children about fentanyl. So there's resources out there that parents can utilize to help them start that conversation.
That's good to know.
There's great educational tools. DEA's partnered with Discovery Education, and they've got information for grades 3 through 12 and through college. So depending on age appropriate. Also, Song for Charlie houses the Beaverton, Oregon School District's fentanyl awareness curriculum, and that's being used all over the nation. So that they were the first schools to come up with a curriculum because the drug deaths in Oregon were so bad. So that's been helpful. I share that information a lot.
Yeah, fentanyl awareness needs to be implemented in the schools. A lot of these kids are getting it at school, you know. So it's very important, and we have to start with middle school. But by the time they get to high school, they've already experimented. So it's middle school.
And you only get one mistake.
One,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what's so terrifying.
We don't even get a mistake. You might die.
Yeah.
I mean, DEA says there's 6 out of 10 pills are fatal now. So
Yeah.
there's no,
Those are not
it's
good
Russian
odds.
roulette.
It
There's
is Russian
no,
roulette, yes.
There's no, some people don't have a chance.
And the pills like Adderall and Xanax, these are common medications in families' homes for depression, anxiety. Adderall, kids in college use it for studying, not that that's supposed to be what it's for. I think that's an ADHD medication, Adderall. But these kids are used to taking these, and now they look exactly the same, but they're not.
Yeah.
So they're just completely fake. So it's really important for them to get that messaging. You just can't trust it. And so hopefully the kids will get scared enough to not even want to try it.
Right.
That's the scariest thing is right there. And a lot of people say, oh, scaring kids doesn't work. But this is a real big problem. And
That's what the
deaths
schools
are
say. We don't want to
outrageous.
use scare tactics. Well, these are facts.
These
I
are
mean,
facts,
These are
exactly.
facts.
Yeah.
It is scary.
It is scary,
Yeah,
and
they
they
need
should
to be scared.
Mhm.
Yeah.